Greenwald has done a piece talking about the motive for anti-U.S. terrorism and how it is cited over and over again. And there's virtually no variation from what we hear. And whether it was yesterday or 2 days ago, or I should say we played it yesterday, but from Meet the Press this past weekend, Tom Brokaw even raises this issue. He starts off by talking about what little we know at this point of the motivations of the Boston bombers. But from what has been leaked, and he cautions, and rightfully so, that we need to take this with a grain of salt because we have no official reporting on this. But that Dzhokhar Tsarnaev has told interrogators that the American wars in Iraq and Afghanistan motivated him and his brother to carry out the attack. Now, on a day when George Bush is going around and performing all sorts of interviews to promote the opening of his library, and let's talk about what he said to Diane Sawyer on ABC. As far as I'm concerned, the debate is over. Finito. I added that part. I mean, I did what I did, and historians will ultimately judge those decisions. In terms of the lack of weapons of mass destruction, which are acknowledged in the museum, we've talked about this, we're just laying out the facts, and that was a fact. I'm comfortable in the decision-making process. I think the removal of Saddam Hussein was the right decision for not only our own security, but for giving people a chance to live in a free society. Which, of course, is completely diluted, both from what you could anticipate happening and as to what has happened. But history will ultimately decide that, and I won't be around to see it. Now, I don't know what George Bush's timeline for history is, but he's trying to give himself a decent padding, right? I mean, I don't know how old he is. In his 70s at this point? 60s. Late 60s? So hopefully I will live until I'm 250. And historians at that point might say, hey, look, Iraq is free. That must have been because 175 years ago, George Bush made the decision to go in and kill or cause the civilian deaths of over 130,000, 150,000, 170,000. Hey, why bother counting? Let history decide. I'm going to live until I'm 275 years old. That's my plan. See, my plan is to cryogenically freeze myself so that history doesn't start ticking until I'm long gone. See? So then the historians will start in about 300 years from now. See, I got the whole thing planned out in my head. People say I wasn't smart. I'm the one who's... I figured out what the history algorithm is. But the point about this is that what we're seeing now in terms of these terror attacks continue to be part of his legacy. Our extended involvement in Afghanistan, occupation, semi-occupation at this point of Afghanistan, occupation, is part of George Bush's legacy. The continued deaths in Iraq, part of George Bush's legacy. And so when we hear from these Boston bombers that their motivation had to do with Iraq and Afghanistan, this is on George Bush. This is not to say that President Obama does not have some responsibility in prolonging our engagement in Afghanistan. But this is on George Bush. When the attempted underwear bomber said, quote, I had an agreement with at least one person to attack the United States in retaliation for U.S. support of Israel and in retaliation of the killing of innocent civilian Muslim populations in Palestine and in Gaza and Muslim populations in Yemen, Iraq, Somalia, Afghanistan, and beyond, most of them women and children and non-combatants. This is part of George Bush's legacy as well. And to be sure, it is part of President Obama's legacy of continuing drone strikes. This is a function of U.S. policy. When the Times Square bomber says, if the United States does not get out of Iraq, Afghanistan, and other countries controlled by Muslims, we will be attacking U.S. And this is also a continuation, not just of George Bush's legacy, again, about the drone attacks. Emails and other communications obtained by the U.S. documents show how this Times Square bomber, Faisal Shahzad, transformed from a law-abiding, middle-class, naturalized American into someone who felt compelled to engage in violence as a result of the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, drone attacks, Israeli violence against Palestinians and Muslims generally, Guantanamo, and torture. Apparently in these emails he asked, can you tell me a way to save the oppressed and a way to fight back when rockets are fired at us and Muslim blood flows? The attempted NYC subway bomber, Zazi, the first Afghan-American involved in such a plot, on his pleading guilty. During the spring and summer of 2008, I conspired with others to travel to Afghanistan to join the Taliban and fight against the U.S. military and its allies. Al-Qaeda leaders there asked us to return to the United States and conduct martyrdom operations. We agreed to this plan. I did so because of my feelings about what the United States was doing in Afghanistan. The Fort Hood shooter, Nidal Hassan. Part of this disenchantment was his deep and public opposition to the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, a stance shared by some medical colleagues, but shaped by him by a growing religious fervor. Greenwald goes on to say, it should go without saying that the issue here is causation, not justification or even fault. It is nonetheless vital to understand why there are so many people who want to attack the U.S. as opposed to, say, Peru or South Africa or Brazil or Mexico or Japan or Portugal. It's vital for two separate reasons, he says. First, he says that some leading American opinion makers love to delude themselves and mislead others into believing that the U.S. is attacked despite the fact that it is peaceful and peace-loving and freedom-giving and innocent. They don't hate us for our freedoms, in other words. As the attackers themselves make clear as they can, it's not religious fanaticism, but rather political grievance that motivates these attacks. Religious conviction may make them more willing to fight, but the motive is anger over what is being done by the U.S. and its allies to Muslims and Muslim countries. And if these countries were not Muslim and they were all Christian, they would undoubtedly say the same thing. We certainly see religious fervor, whether it's Judaism, whether it's Christianity, whether it's any other religion, drive people to commit atrocities. We have seen it historically. We see it with settlers attacking Muslims in the West Bank. We see it with Christians blowing up abortion clinics. And the analogy here is not that this is causation. There's abortion is illegal in this country, therefore it is causing these people to bomb it. And maybe that is, but we have to make a value judgment here. Our Supreme Court has found abortion to be legal. That does not have the same compelling, I should say that has a more compelling directive than the idea that we need to launch drone attacks. And now we know not just on people who we, in a incredibly loose definition of the term, present imminent threat to us, but we know by reporting in McClatchy that we kill people with drone attacks just as a bargaining chip, just to develop relations with other countries, just to get things from other countries. The second point that Greenwald says it's crucial to understand this causation is because it's often asked, what can we do to stop terrorism? The answer is right in front of our faces. We could stop embracing the policies in that part of the world which fuel anti-American hatred and trigger the desire for vengeance and return violence.